All our stories are created for entertainment purposes only.
I want to tell you about my experience with my wife, Kimberly, who I've been married to for 5 years. Unfortunately, she has been unfaithful, and I have a plan to make them face the consequences. I ensured she knew that I was aware of her infidelity. Initially, when I found out about her cheating, I acted normal, giving no hint that I knew about it. However, later, I revealed the truth to her, watching her struggle to understand how much I knew. My name is Anthony, a 35-year-old business manager at a popular store. My wife, Kimberly, is a 30-year-old entrepreneur. We've been married for 5 years, and I recently discovered her affair with our new neighbor, Jason. Jason moved into our neighborhood not long ago. It's heartbreaking to see someone you love betray and play with your heart. I still can't believe she would discard what we built in 5 years for a few moments of pleasure. Before I go on, let me share how Kim and I met. We first met at her best friend's aunt's wedding, who happens to be my mom's friend. We were both in college at the time, but we didn't get a chance to interact. Fate brought us together again at a fundraiser. We recognized each other, chatted for a while, and this time, I made sure to get her contact details. We started texting, went on brunch and dinner dates, and eventually, I asked her to be my girlfriend. After 2 years of dating, I proposed, and she accepted. We got married a few months after college graduation and moved to New York to start our lives. As a couple, we lived a normal life, both pursuing our careers. I work long hours at the sales department of the business I'm currently employed at, often coming home late to ensure customer satisfaction. My busy work schedule sometimes makes it hard for me to join activities not related to my job, causing challenges in finding quality time with my wife. Balancing demands between work and personal life isn't always easy, and it leaves me feeling tired and guilty at times. On the flip side, my wife is an entrepreneur, and we both earn enough to support ourselves. We've chosen not to have kids for now due to our hectic work routine, wanting to avoid giving inadequate attention to our future children. Despite our busy lives, we still make time for regular dates. Kim and I have supported each other through thick and thin, building what I believe to be a strong relationship. However, I've recently discovered that everything was a facade. I've been deceived and blindsided right under my nose. Kim started behaving strangely, staying out late, which is unlike her as she usually waits for me to come home so we can go to bed together. I tried asking her, initially giving her the benefit of the doubt, thinking she wasn't cheating on me. After 2 weeks of her worsening behavior, I finally confronted her about coming home late. She brushed off my concerns, claiming I was overreacting and had nothing to worry about. Despite initially believing her, my instincts kept telling me something was wrong. When I asked again, she insisted she was tired and needed rest for work. We were both tired, so I didn't press the issue. This situation shows how much I cared for and admired my wife, not in a literal worship sense, but in an adoring way. I guess nowadays people call it being a simp. In my marriage, I was basically the submissive one, but now I see that playing that role just makes me look foolish. I feel really embarrassed admitting this. It's crazy that I trusted my wife so much that I didn't realize she was cheating on me. What's even wilder is that our neighbor is her affair partner, and it took me way too long to figure it out. I think my wife knows I'm a calm guy, and that's probably why she had the guts to cheat with our neighbor, who lives just a few steps away. I'm sure you're curious about how I found out. It happened 2 weeks ago, and it took some serious effort to uncover the truth. I talked to friends, and they suggested hiring a private investigator to handle things smoothly. At first, I hesitated because I didn't feel right spying on my wife without her knowing. But as time passed, I realized I had to do it to find out what was really going on behind my back. I knew I wouldn't get the truth from her since cheaters never admit their mistakes. Hiring the private investigator became necessary because I was becoming increasingly paranoid and frustrated. I wanted to keep my decision a secret from Kim, so I planned my actions discreetly. However, my job made it challenging to handle things efficiently on my own, so I decided to hire a professional for the task. I chose to use a private investigator as a cover to maintain secrecy successfully. It was a versatile plan, and I managed to conceal my intentions completely. Kim remained completely unaware, which was the perfect outcome. Initially, Kim was puzzled about why we suddenly needed someone to manage our gate, as it had never been an issue before. I had to convince her that I struggled with it after returning from work. Once I explained my need for a gatekeeper, she didn't seem to question it further. The private investigator I hired was highly skilled, making it appear like a genuine gatekeeper. Without his expertise, I might have believed he was just an ordinary gatekeeper. Due to my busy work schedule, I was rarely home to receive updates from the private investigator. Most of my time was consumed by work, with only weekends available for me. It wasn't until one of those weekends that I managed to get some feedback. He mentioned that my wife had been cautious in all her actions. After a few more days, the private investigator informed me that he had gathered substantial evidence of Kim's infidelity. When I inquired about the evidence, he explained that he had pictures and videos of my wife leaving our neighborhood. I didn't initially see why this was suspicious and asked for clarification. He then revealed that despite getting dressed up, she never actually left the neighborhood. It turned out Kim had been dressing up to meet our new neighbor, Jason. Yes, the guy who moved in just 4 months ago. Discovering that Kim was comfortable cheating on me with our new neighbor was incredibly painful. After 2 more weeks, the private investigator provided me with all the evidence, including pictures of my wife with Jason. I must admit, guys, I didn't see that one coming. It hit me hard. I didn't become less forgiving overnight. It was a gradual process, and Kim's betrayal only fueled my determination. After collecting all the necessary evidence, I realized I couldn't let her betrayal slide. It took me days of contemplation to come up with a plan. I don't intend to remain silent and only seek revenge. No, that would be foolish. I want her to know that I'm aware of her actions and see how anxious she becomes, understanding the trouble she's in. My initial decision is to drop hints that I'm aware of her infidelity, slowly driving her crazy with suspense. I have a lot in store for her, and I can't wait for her to fall into my trap. The worst kind of men are those who were once gentle but turned ruthless due to mistreatment. I've got a baffling plan for next week, and I'll update this post once I've pulled it off. Please drop a comment here and share your own experiences. I'm eager to hear your thoughts and ideas and hope I can offer some guidance to those in need. Until the next update. Hey everyone, I'm back, and I'm ready to share the latest. Living under the same roof with the woman I call my wife has been incredibly tough. She's cheating, shamelessly. My private investigator keeps sending me updates, and the contents are just revolting. A few days ago, I collected almost 10 pictures from his findings. Kim was in the living room when I stormed in, filled with anger from what I'd seen that day. Without letting me speak, I confronted her. What happened next was intense. She had the nerve to ask me for money, believe it or not. Yes, you read that right. Kim had the audacity to request money despite her actions. I was so furious that I grabbed her elbow and pushed her until she was on the floor, face down. I tossed the disgusting pictures at her and witnessed the surprise in her widened eyes. Yeah, guys, Kim had this look of surprise on her face. It was clear how guilty she felt, and that just fueled my anger even more. I had secretly hoped that maybe, just maybe, the pictures were fake and she was innocent all along. But that day, my hopes were shattered as I realized Kim was even worse than what the private investigator had painted her to be. Kim didn't show a hint of remorse for her cheating. In fact, she acted like she hadn't done anything wrong. Her complete indifference infuriated me and only strengthened my resolve to make her life difficult. Kim had the audacity to try and blame me for her actions. She attempted to make it look like I was the cause of her decision to cheat. We ended up in a heated argument, and Kim went so far as to set me up. She kept throwing herself at me, almost trying to provoke me into hitting her. Yeah, guys, she tried to push me to the point of physical violence. Thankfully, I saw through her scheme and kept my hands calmly behind my back, choosing to ignore her. I knew she was fishing for a reason to frame me and possibly get me arrested for domestic issues. After all, I couldn't seek revenge from behind bars, so I had to keep my cool. I didn't stick around to listen to her lies. I made it crystal clear that our relationship was over. Kim was so sure I was just bluffing, thinking I wouldn't do anything to her. Let me tell you, her arrogance only fueled my determination. When I saw how nonchalant she was, I realized I'd been a pushover of a husband for too long. Her confidence that I wouldn't harm her just confirmed my worst fears. I'd been a complete fool. That very day, I left the house and didn't return until the next day. When I got back, Kim met me at the door, complaining that there was no food in the house. Can you believe it? She had the audacity to ask me for money to buy groceries, as if everything that had happened could be forgotten. I simply ignored her and headed straight to my room. I wasted no time in tossing all of Kim's belongings out of the closet. Oddly enough, while I was busy collecting her stuff, Kim was nowhere to be found. Once I had gathered all her things and placed them outside, I realized she had left the house. It didn't take a genius to figure out where she had gone. I was pretty sure she had gone to see her lover. So I grabbed a matchstick from the kitchen and doused her clothes with some gasoline. In less than 5 minutes, all of her clothes were up in flames. About 30 minutes after I burned her clothes, Kim rushed back home like a madwoman. "What's with all the smoke? What did you do?" she immediately demanded when she saw me. Well, of course, I ignored her because she was utterly useless to me. But when she decided to lay her hands on me and attempted to scratch my face with her nails, I had to push her to the ground. Reddit, you have no idea how insane Kim turned out to be. I can't believe I've put up with someone so foolish for all these years. When I finally confessed to Kim that I'd burned all her stuff, she nearly lost her mind right then and there. She broke into tears and threatened to call the cops if I didn't replace her clothes. I paid no attention to her tantrums. It was pointless to argue with someone like Kim, who had zero respect for me and was utterly repulsive. So I took hold of her hands and dragged her out of the house. Kim was so shocked that she started screaming like a drama queen. I didn't acknowledge her screams or her protests. I kept pulling her until we were right in the middle of the neighborhood. You know the kind of neighborhood where everyone loves to gossip and watch a good show? That's where I intentionally took her. Our loud commotion attracted quite a crowd. I wasn't sure if Kim was being overly dramatic or if my grip on her hands was really that hard. I won't lie, folks. I made sure to leave some bruises while I was at it. As I mentioned earlier, Kim's screams were drawing a lot of attention, and the onlookers seemed to think I was mistreating her. I didn't bother explaining anything. I just focused on carrying out my plan. And guess who had the audacity to come out and watch the whole scene? None other than Jason, Kim's lover. I had a feeling he'd be foolish enough to show up, and that's why I staged this whole scene in the first place. I announced to all the neighbors that Kim was no longer my wife and would no longer be living with me. Kim was already trembling beside me before I could finish my sentence. She despised public humiliation and had a massive ego. I knew she wouldn't want to be shamed in front of everyone, which is exactly why I brought her out. I explained to the neighbors that Jason and my wife had been having an affair, so it only made sense for them to live together from now on. I dragged Kim over to where Jason was standing and handed her off to him. He looked utterly shocked and frightened when he saw me right in front of him, trembling like a fish out of water. I got so furious that I punched him square in the face. What angered me the most was that he was just a new neighbor, barely old enough to be my younger brother. My punch was so hard, despite everyone's attempts to stop me. I made sure he got a proper beating. By the end of it, I had successfully broken his hand and left him limping. I only stopped because the neighbors stepped in and held me back. I didn't care to hear what anyone had to say. I just returned to the house. I rearranged my room and trashed every wedding picture I had. Barely 2 hours later, while I was trying to rest and regain my energy, I heard commotion outside my gate. The private investigator came in and informed me that Kim and her parents were at the door. Kim had apparently called her parents to beg me on her behalf and convince me to let her back into the house. Yes, you read that right, guys. I couldn't believe my ears when the gatekeeper told me that Kim's parents were waiting for me at the door. How shameless and irresponsible can an entire family be? How can you confidently accompany your daughter to beg her husband after she cheated on him so ruthlessly? I was so disgusted that I flat out refused to go see them. That incident really opened my eyes to how much of a pushover I must have been. The fact that her parents had the audacity to come with her just shows how much of a doormat I'd been in the past. After having lunch at home later that day, I decided to step out of the house. I had practically caused a commotion in the neighborhood, and it seemed like everyone was talking about what I had done earlier that day. But I couldn't care less. All I wanted to do was get those pictures of Kim and Jason printed out. I planned to hang them all around the neighborhood and in front of my gate for everyone to see. Once I had the pictures printed, I returned home and hired someone to hang them up during the night. You won't believe what happened the next morning. I woke up to the sounds of people banging on my gate. It left me baffled, so I decided to go outside and check what was going on. My hired gatekeeper, who was actually a private investigator, wasn't around at that time, so I had to investigate myself. When I reached the gate, I saw my neighbor standing there with Kim, who happened to be in tears. When I asked them why they were at my gate, they held up one of the printed pictures. It turned out that the person I had hired had already done their job. Kim dropped to her knees and pleaded with me to stop trying to ruin her life. Some of the nosy neighbors begged me to do it. After getting those pictures, some folks had the nerve to ask if I felt embarrassed. I was taken aback by such a question because it just didn't make any sense. Why should I be the one feeling ashamed when I'm the one who got cheated on? Why should I hide my face? It was utterly nonsensical, and I made that clear to them. Those pictures were seriously provocative, and some were downright scandalous. I denied being the one who leaked the pictures before I shut my gate. I had a decent breakfast that morning and spent some time getting ready for work. I had an appointment with my lawyer that day, so I went there before heading to the office. My lawyer had already started working on the divorce papers, just as I had instructed. I needed to divorce Kim as soon as possible, and that's exactly what I was working towards. I wanted to ensure my lawyer was good enough to spare me from paying any alimony. It just doesn't make sense for a cheating wife to walk away with your hard-earned money. During my workday, I had to turn off my phone because I kept getting calls from Kim and her parents. I flat out refused to answer any of their calls. If they thought I was just going to roll over and take it, they were sorely mistaken. I wasn't going to let myself be a doormat like I had in the past. There was no way that was going to happen. I still remember how I had been all calm and accommodating with her family. I even let them take the reins at our wedding and everything related to it. Now, with this whole cheating mess, I've come to realize I've been the world's biggest pushover. I allowed myself to be manipulated and treated like a doormat. The level of disrespect Kim has shown me is just downright shameful. Some folks cheat and make sure they do it far away from home to avoid getting caught. But Kim was so audacious and carefree that she didn't mind cheating with our neighbor. Let me share some wisdom with you all. It's never a crime to be assertive or stand up for yourself. Sometimes it's perfectly fine to unleash the beast that nobody knew existed within you. I mean, if you have any doubts, just take a look at where being the nice guy got me. I gained nothing from it except betrayal and a heap of unnecessary embarrassment. Oh, I almost forgot the most crucial part of what transpired in these past few days. Talking about it still makes my blood boil because I keep replaying everything in my mind. Thankfully, my keyboard didn't suffer any damage due to my anger. So, let me fill you all in on what went down on Reddit. Before I discovered Kim's infidelity, our lives were pretty ordinary. By that, I mean we knew a lot about each other, like any typical couple. We'd share our thoughts and personal information. I've shared my personal info with Kim and vice versa. It's through this that I happen to know her bank PIN. She also knows mine, but I've already taken the precaution of blocking all my cards and getting new ones. You remember me mentioning that Kim is an entrepreneur, right? Well, I decided to use that to my advantage. She kept her savings for her businesses in one place. She's got an account where she keeps money sent by her customers for purchases during her trips. I've managed to turn this to my advantage. While I was gathering her belongings, I stumbled upon one of her ATM cards. Instead of burning it, I headed to the bank and withdrew every last cent. And when I say everything, I mean everything, including her customers' funds. I didn't spare her savings either. I wrecked her phone the day I kicked her out, so I'm pretty sure she hasn't discovered the missing money yet. She's been using her parents' phone to reach out to me, unaware of the financial hit she's taken. When she finally realizes, it'll be too late for her. It's a substantial amount, and I won't specify the sum. I'm planning to use part of that money to cover the divorce expenses if things get heated. I'm just getting started with her, and she's completely clueless. Maybe I'm seeking revenge for all the disrespect she's shown me. By the time I'm through with her, she'll regret treating me like a doormat. That sums up what's been going on these past few weeks. Besides the divorce, I've got another plan in the works, but I'm still figuring it out. I'll put the pieces together and execute it before updating you all. I also need to use this platform to refocus on my work because I've been distracted for a while. Now that I've tackled most of my priorities, I want to consistently concentrate on my job. I still need to earn a living because money doesn't magically appear. That's the scoop for today. I'll be back with updates soon. Please keep those comments rolling in. I love reading them. Stay tuned. I'm on cloud 9, and I want to share that joy with all of you. But before I dive in, a heartfelt thank you to each one of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to read and engage with my story. I never expected so many people would even glance at my unfortunate experience. It seems like I underestimated myself. I can see all the love you've shown, and I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you very much. I won't stray too far from the point today. I'm eager to get to it because I'm writing this in high spirits. As I mentioned earlier, I carefully pondered my next move while juggling work and personal reflection on recent events. I concluded that it was only fair to confront Jason. Funny enough, if it weren't for Kim, I wouldn't have realized Jason lived so close to us. We did know we had a new neighbor, but I never suspected he was involved with my wife. What angers me most is that he's at least 5 years younger than me. I can't figure out what women really want anymore. Kim cheated with a younger guy, and for what? She was willing to throw our marriage away for fleeting pleasure. That's all there is to it. All she wanted was to wreck the marriage. This brings me to my next question. Why is it so hard to ask for a divorce? If you're fed up with your partner and prefer to fool around instead of fixing your marriage, why not request a divorce? I don't bite. If she had asked for a divorce, I'd have granted it without hesitation. I genuinely couldn't care less about forcing her to stay. I would have respected her immensely if she had just come to me and asked for a divorce. That's way more honorable than going the shameful route of cheating on your spouse. Cheating is for cowards, and I'll never have any respect for anyone who thinks it's okay to cheat. I found out that Jason works at a tech company, so I decided to pay him a visit at his workplace. Yeah, he's one of those young, wealthy guys who feel like they can do whatever because they have few real responsibilities and a decent paycheck. I'm not sure if Kim was drawn to him because of his money or his age. It doesn't make sense that she'd stay in my house, eat my food, and then sneak outside to cheat. Man, I've been a colossal fool. I'll keep saying that. The distance between my place and Jason's is tiny. How did I not know? Well, that's why I'm working hard to make sure Kim regrets her choices. When I got to Jason's workplace and inquired about him, it took a while before I could actually meet him. He must have been anticipating my visit. After all the beatings he's received from me, I expected nothing less. When Jason saw me, he looked like he was about to wet his pants. Honestly, I'm pretty annoyed that Kim chose to cheat on me with such a timid guy. But hey, I won't judge because I used to be Kim's doormat. It's like she has a type. She's drawn to guys she knows she can easily control. When Jason and I were alone in the lobby, I could see how frightened he was. I'm a tall guy, and some say I can appear quite intimidating at times. Well, that apparently didn't deter Kim from cheating on me. Jason practically wearing his fear on his sleeve was pretty amusing. He had a cast on his arm, and I could tell my previous beating had really done a number on him. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. LOL. He even had a noticeable limp in his step. Before I could even say a word, Jason started apologizing. Listen, man, I'm sorry for what happened. I messed up. I didn't know she was your wife. She told me you guys were cousins, and she was just staying at your place until she got back on her feet. Yep, that's what he told me. Apparently, Kim had spun a web of lies, convincing him we were just cousins. I was skeptical at first, didn't want to buy it, but he provided all the proof I needed. He even had voice recordings of Kim repeatedly calling me her cousin. But that didn't change my view of him. He was just as naive as she was. If he had really wanted to find out if I was her cousin or not, he could have dug a bit deeper. He simply went along with what she told him because, let's be honest, he had an interest in her too. Ignorance isn't an excuse. I didn't take any action against him, guys. I'd already given him a good thrashing, and I wasn't about to waste more of my time on Kim's leftovers. I'd never let her think she got to me by cheating. Well, she did get to me, but she doesn't need to know that just yet. I asked Jason if Kim was still at his place, and he immediately said no. He told me he'd kicked her out and ended things with her. I asked him why he did it, and he said he wasn't keen on dating a married woman. I was surprised to hear that because my main reason for meeting him was to get him to break up with her. Jason went ahead and did that all on his own. No need for me to lift a finger, LOL. Jason kept apologizing to me before I left, but I had no business with him anymore. I didn't see any reason to waste time accepting his apologies. It felt good to know that Jason and Kim had split up. I didn't want to take his word for it, so I had my private investigator confirm it. Just 2 days later, he told me that Jason was telling the truth. Kim wasn't living with him anymore, and they'd broken up 2 weeks before I even found out. That's part of why Kim kept calling me from her mom's phone. She wanted me to take her back. Fast forward 2 weeks from my visit to Jason's workplace, I was practically ambushed at my own job. Kim dropped to her knees, crying and threatening to strip naked if I didn't forgive her. Yes, you read that right. Imagine how stunned I was. My colleagues sneaked glances at the spectacle. Kim thought she could emotionally manipulate me into doing something I didn't want to do. I told her she could strip naked if that's what she wanted. It was none of my business. I didn't care about her theatrics at all. When I got back from work that day, my lawyer informed me that the divorce papers were ready. I signed them and sent them to Kim's place, patiently waiting for her to do the same. Even after 2 weeks, Kim still hadn't signed the papers. She came to my house demanding a conversation. She said she'd been to the bank and found all her money gone. Kim begged me to return the money because her customers were threatening to sue her. I denied taking the money and told her to leave my house. Kim insisted she wouldn't sign the divorce papers unless I returned the money. I was fine with that because I have no plans to get married anytime soon. I don't want any legal drama. If she wants to prolong the divorce and deal with lawsuits while being broke, single, and abandoned, that's her problem. I've already achieved the perfect revenge, and I'm satisfied with it. I even have a girlfriend now. We're just having fun, nothing too serious. It was tough, but I had a lot of fun.